Hello my dear viewers, I would like to thank you for watching the video and I wanted to say subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be very grateful and you will not miss new videos. Enjoy the video. My name is Alex Hayes. I live in a quiet town called Greenridge. Nothing much happens here. It's one of those places where everyone waves at each other but never really knows anyone. Perfectly peaceful, perfectly boring, or at least that's what I thought. This started 3 weeks ago. It was a Saturday night, and I was home alone. My roommate, Josh, was out of town visiting his folks, so I had the house to myself. I remember that night vividly. I was on the couch, half asleep, with an old horror movie playing in the background. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and the occasional creak of the floorboards kept me on edge. Classic creepy vibes, right? But I was used to it. Then, the phone rang. Not my cellar old landline, the one we barely ever use. Honestly, I'd forgotten we even had it. The sound jolted me upright. I stared at the phone on the wall, its shrill ring cutting through the silence. Who uses landlines anymore? My first instinct was to ignore it, but something about the timing, almost midnight, made me uneasy. I got up and answered, "Hello." At first, all I heard was static, faint and crackling like an old radio station just out of range. I was about to hang up when I heard a voice, a low whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Do you know what he did?" "Excuse me," I stammered. My heart was racing now. The voice didn't respond, just more static. Then the line went dead. I hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at the phone. Maybe it was a prank call. Kids messing around. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That voice, it sounded off. Not robotic, not computerized, just off, like it didn't belong. I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't shake the unease. I double-checked the locks on the doors and windows, made sure the house was secure, and crawled into bed, but sleep didn't come easy. Every little noise, the creak of the stairs, the groan of the wind, felt amplified, like something or someone was just outside, waiting. And then, at 3:14 a.m., the phone rang again. I froze, staring at the glowing numbers on the bedside clock. 3:14 a.m. That wasn't a time for casual calls. The landline rang again, sharp and insistent. My heart pounded in my chest. I thought about ignoring it, pretending I didn't hear. But what if it was important? What if something had happened to Josh? That thought pulled me out of bed, each step toward the phone feeling heavier than the last. I picked up the receiver, my voice shaky. "Hello." Static. At first, it was just like before, crackling, faint, almost hypnotic. But then, that same voice came through, clearer this time. "You don't know what he did." "But I do." "Who is this?" I demanded. My voice cracked. "If this is some kind of joke, it's not funny." The voice ignored me, almost like it hadn't heard. "You're not safe, Alex. He's coming." Click. The line went dead again. I stood there, gripping the receiver so tightly my knuckles turned white. My head was spinning. Who was he, and why was I not safe? My first thought was to call the police, but what would I even tell them? Some creepy voice on a landline said I wasn't safe. Yeah, that'd go over well. Instead, I did the next logical thing. I called Josh. The phone rang twice before he picked up, groggy and confused. "Alex, what's going on? It's the middle of the night. There's someone calling the house. They keep saying weird things about not being safe, about someone coming." "Do you know anything about this?" I was rambling, panic creeping into my voice. Josh was quiet for a moment. That doesn't make any sense. Who even has our landline number? That question hit me like a punch to the gut. He was right. We never used that number. Never gave it out? I don't know, I admitted, pacing the room now. But something's not right, Josh sighed. Look, it's probably some kind of prank. Lock the doors, keep your phone nearby, and get some sleep. I'll be back tomorrow, okay? I didn't like it, but what else could I do? Yeah, okay, I lied. After hanging up, I couldn't bring myself to go back to bed. I grabbed a kitchen knife, not exactly comforting, but it was better than nothing, and sat in the living room with all the lights on. The hours dragged by. Around 5 a.m., just as the sky was starting to lighten, I heard it. A faint thud from the back of the house. My stomach dropped. I crept toward the noise, knife in hand, every step feeling like it took an eternity. The sound came again, louder this time, a deliberate, almost rhythmic pounding on the back door. When I reached the kitchen, I stopped, staring at the door. The frosted glass pane revealed a shadowy figure on the other side, and moving except for the slow, methodical knocking. Who's there? I called out, my voice trembling. No answer, just the knocking, louder now. I tightened my grip on the knife, every nerve in my body screaming to run, to hide. But before I could do anything, the knocking stopped, then the landline rang. The landline's shrill ring cut through the silence, freezing me in place. My eyes darted between the phone on the wall and the shadow outside the door. I didn't want to answer, but I couldn't just ignore it either. My gut told me it was connected, that the voice and the figure outside weren't coincidences. The knocking had stopped, but the shadow remained. It was unnervingly still, like whoever or whatever it was waiting for me to make the next move. Finally, with trembling hands, I picked up the receiver. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice cracking. This time, the voice didn't whisper. It spoke clearly, deliberately. "Don't open the door, Alex." My breath caught in my throat. "What are you talking about? Who are you? Don't open it." "He's not who you think he is." Click. The line went dead. I slammed the receiver down and backed away, my eyes glued to the door. The shadow was still there, motionless. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I didn't know what to believe. Was this some elaborate prank? Was someone trying to mess with me, or was I in real danger? The silence was suffocating. I needed to do something, anything, to break it. I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. 911, what's your emergency? "There's someone outside my house," I blurted. "They've been knocking on the door, and I think they're trying to get in. They won't say who they are. Are they still there?" The operator asked, her voice calm but firm. I glanced at the door. The shadow was gone. My heart sank. "They were," I whispered. "But now they're not." "Stay on the line with me," the operator instructed. "Officers are on their way." "Is there a safe place in your house where you can go?" I nodded, then realized she couldn't see me. "Yeah," I muttered. "I'll go to my room." I hurried upstairs, clutching the knife so tightly my hand ached. The operator stayed on the line, asking questions I barely registered. Was the house locked? Did I see any vehicles outside? I answered automatically, my mind racing. When I reached my room, I locked the door and sat on the bed, staring at the hallway through the crack under the door. I couldn't see anything, but I felt that heavy, oppressive feeling of being watched. And then I heard it, a creak on the stairs. "Someone's in the house," I whispered into the phone. The operator's tone shifted, more urgent now. "Stay where you are. Officers are almost there. Do not engage with them." The creaking grew louder, closer. Whoever it was, they were moving slowly, deliberately. My grip on the knife tightened. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. And then a voice I knew all too well called out, "Alex, it's me, Josh. Open the door." "Josh," I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. My brain struggled to process what I was hearing. Josh wasn't supposed to be back until later that day. He couldn't be here. "Yeah, it's me," the voice said again. "Come on, Alex, open the door. I forgot my keys." The words were casual, but something about his tone was wrong. It lacked the usual warmth, the easygoing nature I knew so well. I tightened my grip on the phone. "How did you get in?" There was a pause, just long enough to make my skin crawl. "The back door," Josh replied. "It was unlocked." That was a lie. I had checked every lock before I sat down in the living room. "I don't believe you," I said, my voice trembling. Another pause. Then the voice changed, still Josh's, but colder, almost mocking. "Don't be like this, Alex. Open the door. We need to talk." I pressed the phone to my ear, desperate for reassurance. "He's at my door," I whispered to the operator. "He says he's my roommate, but something's not right. Please, hurry. They're less than 2 minutes away," she promised. "Stay on the line, don't open the door." The knob jiggled, my heart leapt into my throat. "Alex," the voice said again, louder now. "You're freaking out over nothing, just open the door." I backed further into the room, shaking my head even though he couldn't see me. This wasn't Josh, it couldn't be. But whoever it was, they knew how to sound just like him, Alex. The voice bellowed, the calm veneer cracking into frustration. The door shook violently as he pounded on it. I said, "Open the door." I flinched, every instinct screaming at me to run, to hide, to do anything but stand there frozen in fear. And then, as suddenly as it started, the pounding stopped, silence, the crack under the door showed nothing but darkness. I strained to listen, but all I could hear was my own rapid breathing. "Are you still there?" the operator asked, her voice grounding me. "Yeah," I whispered. He stopped. "I think he—" A loud crash downstairs cut me off. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the house, followed by heavy footsteps. Whoever was at my door wasn't waiting anymore. "They're inside," I hissed into the phone. "Stay where you are," the operator said, her voice urgent. "Officers are seconds away." I backed into the corner of the room, the knife shaking in my hand. My eyes darted between the door and the single window, calculating if I could climb out. Before I could decide, I heard another voice, this one amplified and commanding, Greenridge Police. "Come out with your hands up." Relief flooded me. The footsteps downstairs stopped abruptly. The tension in the air was palpable, like the entire house was holding its breath. Then the pounding returned, this time on the front door. "Police," the voice barked. "Open the door." The house went deathly silent. Whoever was inside wasn't moving anymore. I stayed where I was, clutching the phone like a lifeline. And then I heard it. A low, chilling laugh, so close it felt like it was coming from inside the room. The laugh froze me in place. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakably close inside the room with me. My breath caught in my throat as I whipped my head around, knife raised, scanning the dim corners of the room. It was empty. At least, that's what I thought. The police were shouting downstairs, their commands echoing through the house, but I couldn't focus on them. My entire body was locked in fight-or-flight mode, every nerve on edge. Slowly, I edged toward the window, my eyes darting to every shadow, and then I saw a shape in the corner, hunched and barely distinguishable from the darkness. My heart stopped. It hadn't been there before. Alex. The voice was low, guttural, and unmistakably Josh's, but this wasn't him. I knew it. I didn't wait to find out what it wanted. I bolted for the window, throwing it open and scrambling out onto the roof. The icy night air hit me like a slap, but I didn't care. I was halfway across the roof when I heard the door to my bedroom burst open behind me. "Get back here," the voice bellowed, deeper and more distorted now. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sound of heavy footsteps on the roof chased me as I slid down to the edge, barely catching myself before I fell. I hung there for a second, feet dangling, before I dropped to the ground with a painful thud. Blue and red lights flashed across the yard. I stumbled toward the officers, shouting incoherently. They rushed toward me, guns drawn, shouting commands I couldn't process. "He's in there," I finally managed to scream. "He's inside." The officers stormed the house, their shouts and the crackle of their radios blending into chaos. I collapsed onto the lawn, gasping for air, clutching my side where I'd landed hard. Minutes felt like hours as I sat there, staring at the front door. Finally, the officers emerged, but they weren't dragging anyone out. "There's no one inside," one of them said, his brow furrowed. "We searched the entire house." "That's impossible," I shouted, scrambling to my feet. He was in my room. He was right there. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner, then looked back at me. "Are you sure, sir? We found no signs of forced entry. Just you. And this." He held up something in a plastic evidence bag. My stomach churned as I recognized it immediately. The landline phone, its receiver dangling by the cord. "No," I whispered. "That doesn't make sense. I talked to someone on that phone twice." "We checked the line," the officer said, his tone careful. "It hasn't been connected for months.